Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Hibbing City Council workshop for Wednesday, January 22nd. Current time is 5:42 p.m. Let the record show that all councilors are present with the exception of Mayor Pete Hyduk. Up for discussion, first we're going to start with the tree inventory and tree manual project closeout.
Yeah, thank you, Council. I just wanted to bring Gail back from Davie Resource Group. She was partnered with us on this project the last year, and we were looking at closing it out and finishing the project, and this is just the final kind of recap of everything. This was a grant from the Minnesota DNR and the Relief grant, and I'll hand it over to Gail. And we did the tree inventory with the city boulevard trees in our park. Any public tree that's on city property was a part of the assessment. So I'll hand it over to Gail.
Thank you, members of the council, for having me this evening. Excited to be back to show the final deliverables that we had for our project. Okay. Advancing slides here, Nick.
Yeah. Not advancing.
My system does not like. It's closing the slideshow. So we're going to present slideshow.
Here.
Sure. There we go. Okay. So we had 3 different tasks as part of the project that we did. We presented the preliminary tree inventory findings last May, and we followed that up with a 5-year management plan, including a budget. And I'll show you some highlights from each of those sections. And then this last portion that we've completed is a city ordinance review, as well as a tree manual that accompanied that review. With the tree inventory, we looked at all tree data, vacant sites, including providing software to be able to manage the tree inventory data for the city, and provided training to city staff. Overall, there were 5,000 trees on the street trees we found, as well as 153 stumps once the snow melted. We ended up counting those. We did, as Nick mentioned, we did all the trees on public lands, and on the parks, there were 4,300 trees approximately, with 381 stumps as well. Following the field inventory, then we enlisted the help of our GIS department to be more efficient, to then find what we call vacant sites. And those are spaces that were deemed suitable for planting, and worked with Jesse Story and Nick Carolla to identify what distance from the corners, from the aprons of driveways that we wanted to plant, appropriate planting distance. So as you can see there from the review, 264 small trees, which would be like 20-foot trees, 142 medium size, so that might be like a 30-foot tree, and only 12 large trees. And as I recall, some of the challenges with having like silver maples and things with some infrastructure challenges. So there are very few spaces suitable for large trees in the future. We produced a management plan, and covers 3 major sections, including the structure and composition of your trees, which is another summary. We also have a large section on functions and benefits, including analysis and dollar values associated with stormwater runoff, air pollutants, and of course replacement value if you were to lose the trees. And then of course recommended maintenance. It also includes risk management that we completed for all trees. So the key takeaways, we did find 30% of your trees are ash trees, which you've probably heard of emerald ash borer. That is a much higher percentage than is recommended. In the industry, 10% is pretty typical. So that is definitely something that we've made suggestions on removing those over time. We certainly understand, due to budgets, that's not something you can certainly go in wholesale and just take those out. It has to be a planned attempt. There is an aging tree population, so there's also some recommendations on trying to take that curve and make it a little bit more even, so you don't have as many larger mature trees that need to be managed as often. We did what's called an iTree eco-analysis, and we're able to, all of the trees within the park streets averages up to about 725,000 gallons of water avoided for stormwater runoff. Little over 3,000 pounds per year of air pollutants removed by your trees, as well as 42 tons per year of carbon sequestered. So these are all great pieces that you can use as part of sustainability reports and future, if you were to look at future grants, this is all data that you can use for the environmental benefits. If you were to replace the trees, the associated value with those is over $8 million. So this is what we consider a green asset for your community. Some of the maintenance recommendations included risk management, as I mentioned, the pruning cycle, which is always recommended for cities. A lot of times it's difficult to maintain with other types of management that you have. So the full report, Nick has a copy of that and can provide that as well. We did look at the ordinance as well, and a big part of that process is researching what existing clauses you have in the code. We also engaged a survey to the stakeholders, which would be their tree board, and suggested revisions. So as you all know, we certainly don't take one tree ordinance and in one size fits all. It certainly has to be adapted to what's suitable for the community. And we developed what's called a tree manual. So all of the changes or updates will exist in code, and the manual is a living document that can be accessed on the website and has recommendations so that it's easy to make changes without having to go back and do that officially in code. We have a user-friendly document, helpful diagrams and charts, and as well as it's tailored to the community, so very easy to read without lots of interpretation. The key sections that we included focused on planting, tree preservation, some future development, and some recommended trees to be planted, as well as ones that should not be planted, and pruning guidelines. We did, as far as tree preservation, for looking at the future, for your future development, wanted to have some direct references to ordinance, key pieces of that, also looking at what's called a critical root zone, and this is something that's used all over the country. As you can see from that picture there with the orange fencing, it establishes where, when you're building, areas that you should keep outside of in order to prevent or minimize damage to root systems. We also have some basic guidelines on planting recommendations, setbacks, and as well as proper techniques. And these are taken straight from our recommendations, as well as reviewing DNR, USDA Forest Service, Arbor Day Foundation, some of the local national recommendations. We also reviewed tree species. That certainly has changed over the years. So we typically follow the USDA hardiness zone map in creating a list that's tailored to the community. Based on city data, we make recommendations on the existing tree population and trees that you may want to consider adding to the current list as well. We also look at those that are prohibited. The Minnesota Department of Agriculture regularly updates the noxious weed list, and that does include trees. So we also make recommendations to kind of minimize, trees don't typically have to come out, but it's not recommended to plant any more of those trees that are on that list. We also have some recommendations in regards to the current standards when it comes to tree pruning. Very simple diagrams on how to do that properly, and very easily clickable links for contractors, residents to get that information. So what's next? You're making your way as a city through this process. You have a dedicated commitment, you have a tree inventory, so you certainly have, with that management plan, some opportunities for tree planting in there, as well as utilizing and maintaining your tree inventory. With this data now, that really helps to put the city in a great position to apply for future grants. There's definitely a lot of them out there, and I know that there's some that will be coming out this year, especially in regards to tree planting. So knowing exactly what you have will help that situation. So again, we'd like to thank you, as well as Nick, our contact, and of course the Minnesota DNR that funded your project here in Hibbing. So with that, I can certainly answer any questions if you have them.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Gil, remind me, this is just for trees that are on city property, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So those are some pretty high
All
numbers.
publicly maintained trees.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any recommendations on time frame to get the ash tree
Absolutely.
content down?
It's, it is part of that recommended 5-year management plan.
Okay.
So that is something in the table that would detail out how many trees you should be removing each year to be able to bring that 30% down to 10%.
Okay.
I don't know if I saw in the packet or not, but when we were looking at the hardiness zone, and I know it doesn't seem like it's getting warmer after this week, but as the climate kind of gets warmer and trees from southern Minnesota kind of migrate this far north, is there a plan for climate-smart trees to move them and grow them up here instead?
With the nursery industry especially? Yes, so there's definitely a lot of coordination between the Minnesota DNR, the urban forestry industry, and the nursery and green industry to continue to evolve those planting lists. It takes almost 10 years from the time that you get either a small seedling to grow that out into a sizable, like 1-inch to 2-inch tree. It takes at least 10 years. So a lot of times it's communicating to the nurseries well ahead of time that, hey, you need to be ready for that availability when it gets there. So definitely that's always part of conversation.
Awesome. Anybody else have any other questions? Very much appreciated all the work that went into that report, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, now we're moving on to a discussion regarding the property at 3215 4th Avenue East in Hibbing. Looks like we have, Betsy is up.
Excellent, members of the council, Mr. Mayor. Tonight, we wanted to bring a discussion. I've been working with our finance committee and our city staff, looking at properties that we have available in Hibbing that the city owns once they become available for resale, similar to the Gus Erickson property that we are going to do the request for offer after tonight. The property, the Old Fina property, Nortec property, is something that the city purchased a while back as a secondary site for our public safety center. And at this time, it looks like that may be potentially becoming available at some point in the future for redevelopment or sale back into the private industry. So I wanted to bring a little information in front of you tonight to have you look at it and talk to us about what your intentions are for that property and how long you're interested in holding it while we pay utilities and do repairs and maintenance and those sorts of things. So in your packet, we have a P&L that was put together by Cassie Tomasetti from our finance department, who manages the expenses and revenues on this property. You'll notice at the end of 2024, start of 2025, our starting cash was $15,643.53. Our average utility cost for each month is roughly $4,100. And we do have some revenues that will come in June from the rental of the billboards. However, what that means is by April of 2025, we're starting to pay into that building to continue to hold it going forward. Now, while that makes complete sense when we're holding it as a secondary site for a potential city project, I wanted to come and ask you about this as we move forward. What are your thoughts on repurposing that building? We do have AEOA here tonight because they've come forward as a potential redeveloper of that parcel and are interested in repurposing that for their project. Scott would be prepared to talk to you a little bit about what they're doing with that, or what they're looking to do with that site, where they're at currently, and what kinds of funding mechanisms they'll be looking for. So do you want Mr. Zahork to come up and talk to you about what that would look like, or do you just want to have a general discussion about this property at this time and then ask Mr. Zahork some questions?
Yeah, I would think I would really love to hear from him.
Okay, perfect. Scott?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Thank you. Yeah, as Betsy said, I'm Scott Zohoreck. I'm the executive director at AEOA. So we've got some things in the hopper that we're looking at. One is a tax forfeited homes project that would be something new where the county would hand off tax forfeited properties to the city that they're in, and we're trying to get funding now from the legislature. We've already got some money from the Greater Minnesota Housing Fund and the IRRB, and we're gonna start taking these tax forfeit properties and turn them around and sell them as workforce housing and to folks that are low to moderate income that go through our first-time homebuyer program. And it's a pretty big step up, and we've got to ramp up. Right now, our housing department rents space from Rich Lee's over at the old Votech. We rent 15,000 square feet, and it costs us about $150,000 a year. So we're looking for a permanent home that's more affordable to us. We started looking at a total new build, and we were looking at some property out by the airport. We've also looked at the old Nortec building there too, and that one might even be, or is more preferable to us because it's in, close proximity to our current location and some of the services that we need in town. So that one ranked pretty high for us. We would be looking at moving all of our housing offices in there, and they'll be expanding. We've currently got 50 staff and about 40 vehicles, plus all of our building materials and everything in that 15,000 square feet, and we're bursting at the seams. We've got to make some kind of a change. It just doesn't suit the need. So that's where this building that's almost within walking distance would be, would rate pretty high for us if it's available. If not, we'll have to go look at some other things. We are also looking at, we've got our senior services that serves meals to seniors. We serve about 400,000 meals a year. We prepare them in 5 small rental kitchens, and one of them is over at the Lee Center, but that's an example of it. And we're on a month-to-month lease with all of those kitchens, and if something were to happen where we lost 1 or 2 of those kitchens, we'd really be in a pickle for production. So we're looking at a new build with a commercial kitchen that can meet the capacity of what we need, because the hunger issue isn't going away. In fact, it's increasing, and we need to up our game a little bit there. And then we talked about, you're familiar with Home on the Range, the homeless shelter that opened and is now at full capacity too. Originally, we talked about putting a free store on that property. And we haven't really pursued that, but we started looking at, does it fit better in this facility, especially at this location of the Nortec building? It does fit better there, and we could house that in all 3 pieces in that same facility. So to do this, of course, we need money, and we're looking to the legislature. We got $500,000 from the legislature last year to start the process on this building, and we're back in front of the legislature this year looking for the bulk of the construction money for it. We've also approached the IRRB, and they will be in at some level. We sent letters out to the counties that we served and talked to the county boards and asked them if they would support it financially. And we didn't get an across the board yes, but we got some of the bigger counties have already signed on and made a commitment to this project as well. So now we're into the phase of really trying to legitimize this. One, I need a site to put this building on, so the legislature takes it, as they believe it's real. And then we're working with WIDSEF for architectural plans and blueprints and things like that, so we can get it to the level where it's legitimized down at the legislature, and we can hopefully move this forward. Now, we've all heard about the state budget and everything too. We're looking at lots of other things too. We're working on a federal earmark, the state, and then some of these other sources I'm talking about. We've got a little ways to go with this project, but the big thing that we struggled with last year is not having a site pinned down. So that's a step that we've got to take and get squared away somewhat quickly here. So would just love to have your help and support with this project, but I know you've got your own fish to fry too. So I just wanted to get it in front of you, and if anybody has any questions, I'll do the best I can to answer them for you.
Thank you. Any questions?
I was curious, I just want to make sure I understand, so were you talking about potentially moving some of the other stuff or all three of those other operations to that one site, or did I misunderstand what you were saying?
All three into the one site, and I didn't hear the
Yeah,
last
you
one.
said, at some point said you were looking to maybe house all three somethings in that one space. Was that the free store and,
Well, there's, the two buildings are there, so basically, part of what we need, for the housing part of it, we need office space for the workers we have. We need the commercial kitchen and we need the free store. So we were kind of thinking in this, with each building being 20,000 square feet, that we could warehouse materials in one building and put the other three in the other.
okay,
We'd talked originally about it, and that was the proposal we went to the legislature last year with, was trying to look to the future with it. We were gonna build the office space in a separate building, and that is still our ask, but we're kind of trying to, you know, if we need to do some value engineering here, we're trying to just make sure that no matter how this turns out, we could still move forward with this project. So the plan I just described is kind of our backup plan if we can't get it all the way to the finish line. It's just like the public safety building, you know, you need to make some course corrections in the middle of bigger projects.
yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I went on the bus tour with you in the fall, when we went around and you talked about all this, and we went to Chisholm and looked at the houses you were doing. And you talked about this project. Is the property, the Nortec property, does that suffice, or do you need to build more buildings?
Do they what? I didn't, just the last part.
With what's there, is that what you would utilize, or do you need to construct more facilities?
Well, ideally, you know, we're looking at this as, you know, something far-reaching. We're in too small of a space now, that if we built the other building that housed the office space, it would give us more room for future expansion. Most of what we do is growing and has been for quite some time now, so if that trend continues, I don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket and have it be a short-term answer that doesn't serve us well into the future. So we ideally need the space to handle the operation now, and so we don't end up in the same boat in a short time down the road. We want to have a little bit of room to grow.
Gotcha. And this would save you significant, as opposed to like going out by the airport and building, like this would save you a lot of money?
Yeah, well, that's a little, you know, the airport was we were looking for a straight, pure, new build. And that's what got us out looking at the airport land right away. It's still a consideration, you know, depending on how things go at the legislature and what we can afford. But the location of this other property, you know, being that you can walk from the building we're in now over to that, we've kind of had a presence there for a while that people have come to know and understand, and that would serve us well if we were to just move over.
One quick question. So in consolidating all of these into this one location, and then looking at some future growth, would the consolidation alone result in any more jobs?
Definitely. The tax forfeited home projects is a totally new project. So we're gonna have some people on the office side of that are facilitating the work and everything. And then we're gonna be working with local contractors, and where we can't get contractors, we have our own construction crews, and we'll be, you know, doing some of the work ourselves too. So we need to expand our own workforce so that we're ready to do this. We're starting with the tax forfeited homes. We were gonna pick 5 because we've got 1.25 million at 250,000 a house, and we backed off of one of them. So we've got 4 houses coming now that we're gonna start on as quick as I can get my hands on them. But if we get 2 million from the legislature, then we'd have a little over 3 million just in construction financing. We could ramp it up to as many as 15 homes a year, and ideally, that's what we'd like to do. There's way too many tax forfeited homes that are getting demolition, you know, and we want to get to some of those, because if we can turn a home that's been completely rehabbed for $250,000 and then turn around and sell it to some of the young professionals we're trying to attract in town for $200,000, or we sell it to a first-time home buyer, I think that's gonna have an enormous appeal. I don't think we're gonna be able to produce houses fast enough. If you're familiar with the Habitat House, and you're probably going to their soiree here in a few nights, their construction cost, Nathan was telling me, is over $300,000 for a Habitat home. So when we talk about affordable housing, this isn't something where we're gonna design poor housing that doesn't fit the neighborhood. These homes are already in the neighborhoods. We're just gonna fix them up, leave them right in the neighborhood, and rather than having house, vacant lot that you can't build on, we wanna keep the fabric of the neighborhood together, you know, and really try and do something that both fits and is affordable for folks.
Excellent. Yeah, I've loved this project since you guys first presented it, so very much a direction that we need to go, especially here on the Iron Range.
And for those that took the tour in Chisholm, when we had some legislators up and did the tour, it was perfect because the house right next to the first house we want to do, they just finished rehabbing it. So that was my pitch to the legislators. We're going to take a house that looks like this and we're going to turn it into this. And it couldn't have been better. They were side by side.
Right. Did you have a question?
So I was just gonna say, I think, Scott, you did a good job explaining the difference between Habitat for Humanity and what your program is, because what Habitat takes the property, you take the home and rehab it, correct? If that's the difference between the two programs?
Yeah, they do. They're doing small scale with a similar concept here too. You know, one that I'm familiar with was up in Tower, and they had, the food shelf bought a church and they had the parsonage next door. They donated the house to Habitat, they rehabbed the house, and they turned around and sold it as a Habitat house. The problem is, it's the same problem, even with what I'm talking about, even if sky's the limit and we do 15 a year, we're still not putting a significant dent in the housing program. So I don't want to replace what Habitat's doing. I don't want to be in competition with Habitat. I want to be right alongside Habitat trying to do the same thing, because we need to do as many of these homes as we can. When we did small cities programs for DEED, part of that, when you're doing the application, is to take a ride around town and look at every single house in town. Do that sometime, pick a block, and just drive around and really look at every single house. It's endless. We need a ton of work with housing,
Right,
and it can't be all new homes. We just can't afford to do that.
right, well, thank you for that. There was a lawsuit at one time down in the cities, has that all been taken care of with tax forfeited property? Do you remember the one I'm talking about with the, yeah.
Counselor
thank you.
Hoffman's talking about,
Help
are
me
you
out
talking
here.
about the Tyler case?
Yes,
Yes, it has been settled.
it has been settled?
Yeah,
Okay.
and we are actually working, finance director and myself are actually working to call and make some inquiries to the law firm that's handling the settlement portion to see if any of our assessments can be handled as part of that payout back. Because we had some properties with assessments on them that were things that the city had invested in. So we're working on that right now.
Good, thank you, and
But
thank you,
yes, that
Scott.
lawsuit has been settled.
Thank you.
I
Yes.
just had one question for Scott. Scott, if AEOA acquired the Nortec building, would it then be tax exempt? Or would it go on the tax roll if AEOA got the Nortec building? If you acquired the Nortec building, would that be tax exempt?
It would be, yes, at the end of the day. We are tax exempt for
Thank
the
you.
buildings we own while we own them, yes.
Thank you.
But we'll make up for it because we're gonna have a lot of people working there that are all gonna get paychecks and pay taxes then too, so, and we buy a ton of building materials, so, I mean, I do admit that there's a little heartburn with cities sometimes with the fact that we are tax exempt, but, you know, we do make a significant dent in other ways.
Sure. Thank you.
Scott, can you also tell them what improvements you plan to make to the current buildings? They're not gonna be the same white buildings that they are currently.
You won't even recognize them. They're gonna look like new buildings. I mean, part of it with the rehab is we need to make them suit what we need. So basically, the entire outer skin on the buildings would be taken off because doors and windows and how we use the building are all gonna change, so it would be, you know, all new metal, parking lot improvements, other improvements, infrastructure, electrical, HVAC, plumbing. You know, there isn't much for bathrooms in there now and things like that, and if we put 70 people in the buildings, we've gotta make some significant upgrades to the building. But that's the other part of that site that intrigued me, is I think we can make a nice statement there on the Beltline and really put a couple of buildings there that the city can be proud of being a part of.
Agreed.
All right. Thank you. Cool.
So all I need is, you know, just a few millions and your permission, and away we go.
Awesome.
That's great.
All right, so any other questions for Scott at this time? No? So, are you interested in me working with Attorney Borland then to, try and put together another request for offer? Or would we go for working on a purchase agreement with AEOA, to help them secure a site to get their funding secured at the legislature this year? What are your thoughts around that particular parcel?
Have you had any other interest from anyone besides AEOA?
I've had a couple of people reach out, but at the time that the conversation was happening, we hadn't done the surplus real estate policy, so I told them to kind of hold on for that. I've had a couple of realtors reach out, and I've asked what are the buildings that they're looking for, you know, what, because they've asked about, say, the Vidovik building and those up in North Hibbing as well. So I asked them, what's the square footage you're looking for? What is the you know, the overhead doors, you know, all of those sorts of things, and I'm waiting for them to respond. But so far, nobody has said that this building is perfect for our needs in the same way that AEOA has. However, to your point, Councilor Whitney, it wasn't necessarily up for, you know, offer at that point either, because we had secured it for our public safety second site.
Yeah, I think it would be, I mean, this would be obviously a great spot for AEOA to be. But then on the other hand, I know it's more than just land, but we just went through this with land, where city-owned land, and we were giving, you know, if there's other options or seen other interest parties that are in on it. So, I'm kind of on both sides of that, you know, if there is other opportunities that are out there that they are aware now that we are doing this, that, you know, we're not gonna hold on to the building, we're not gonna do anything with the building. Just something else to look at too.
Sure. So we could go through a two-step process with the same request for offer like we did, and then look at all of the offers and see if there is something else that, you know, does strike your fancy. We could do that, and then walk into a purchase agreement at the next, you know, step. We could probably have a request for offer on the agenda at the next meeting, which would be, where are we at, February 5th. Then we would have to follow a process where we, you know, accept offers. AEOA could be one of those offers at that time. And then we would review them, bring them to council, and let you approve one at that point. I don't know how far that gets into the legislative session at that point. And, you know, bills have to be jacketed by March, what's that date again? I always struggle with that date where all bills have to be submitted or requests for funding. Can't remember exactly. It might be a little tight to do a two-step process, but maybe could be done.
Question about that. 14th?
Yes.
Okay. If we go out for a request for offers, are we bound to accept one because we went out for a request?
No, our request for offer was written such that we can reject offers if we don't see one that's appropriate. Correct?
I agree. We wrote it much like you say, request for bids. It's built in there. We
Okay.
reserve the right to reject all offers.
Okay.
None of them look palatable to the council.
So just wondering here, do you need to present to HEDA as well?
HEDA does not own this property, so I don't.
Right, but as far as economic development though, I mean,
Maybe.
if it was, I was just wondering.
Could, definitely. Depends on what you want.
What was the question?
Should it be brought to HEDA as well, for that board to hear as well? I'll leave that up to you guys to make
I
that
don't know if that,
decision.
if
I
it
didn't
requires
know. I
economic
didn't know.
development packaging maybe, but if it doesn't, then I don't know.
Yeah, I
It-
just want to make sure that we're,
It would, unless the council voted otherwise, voted to waive it, it would need to go through the planning commission though, because it's a sale of real property.
okay. Just want to make sure we have
Again, the
our-
council with unanimous vote could circumvent that, but they, otherwise, through the process on the comprehensive plan,
Okay.
it would go to that committee at least.
Right, and we could enter into a development agreement whereby it says that, with AEOA, these are the things that they have to secure, funding, et cetera, in order to move forward, or the purchase agreement would expire at the end of the legislative session or some such, and you could reconsider and put it out for offer at that point as well. You know, there's a couple of different ways we could go about this, it just depends on.
So I guess kind of what I'm hearing is, obviously, I think we all love the idea of this project. But like John was saying, now that we know as we're moving forward, this is probably not the property we're gonna use for our safety building. We wanna make sure that it's not just, an immediate transaction. We wanna make sure that every interest parties might have the opportunity to look at it. Is that kind of what you're thinking? Council?
I'm actually on the side of going ahead and trying to figure out what a purchase agreement looks like, but I'm going with the consensus of what everybody else is.
So would the time frame be, have something for the council at the next meeting? Is
Yep.
that what should be your time frame? Okay.
Yes.
Mhm.
And you're talking a request for offer, similar to what we saw with Gus Erickson today.
Any thoughts down there?
Because I'm good either way. I think it's a great project, so, and timeline
Yeah.
is of importance too, I'm assuming,
Yeah.
Right.
so.
I do think that having those buildings renovated like AUA is saying, would fit kind of the dynamic of that area as we're coming in from the eye clinic, and then you have those buildings being redone. It would make that area look much nicer and be much, much more attractive, for sure.
Yep, I would agree.
Greg, do you have an opinion?
I do. We have debated this internally for months. And as I listened to the conversation, you've hit on most, if not all, of those points. This is a really good project for this community. I mean, AEOA does a lot for Hibbing and the Iron Range and the Arrowhead region, we all know that. Up to and including employing people, which is a pretty neat thing. So we do need that. It would be great to have them here, it'd be great to host them. We like the idea of the renovation on the Beltway. That would be fantastic. It's another project, it's another redevelopment project, fits great into the area. I think the one piece that we debated the most, and I also struggle with, as I've kind of heard around the table, is that tax exemption. Scott even had mentioned that earlier. I mean, that's oftentimes the hurdle. We're always looking for highest, best use, which includes adding to that tax base, which is what we're always looking for, but we're also looking for jobs. I don't remember the job outlook, 180-ish jobs? Just total.
We're currently at like 45, we need to be up at about 80.
Currently, we'll be at 45 and would need to increase to about 80 jobs at the site.
I mean, that's a substantial number of jobs for our community, so, at the end of the day, I think, having the redevelopment, having the jobs, making sure that, AEOA, locates here. I remember they took over, our transit, Arrowhead did, but the point being is, I think this would be a substantial project for Hibbing, and I think it would be appropriate use of that property.
I agree with what you said.
So, I mean, and there's a lot there, but that, I was trying to demonstrate how much debate that we've had internally, and it's been ongoing, so just to kind of give you some perspective.
Do we recall what the tax base on that property was prior, before?
When it was utilized as a warehouse for Blue Moon and DMR, it was roughly $30,000 to $35,000 a year.
Okay. And personally, that's a number I can stomach for the opportunity for the jobs
Right.
that are there and the
Exactly.
traffic there. I mean, I can envision, I mean, there's a lot of space right next to that. I would imagine there's other development possibilities, hopefully, on the other side of the eye clinic there, where we could, I mean, with more traffic there, there's more people, there's gonna be more need for other businesses around there, places to eat, stuff like that.
So I
And with
think
the-
between the job growth, the reinvestment in houses that would bring up their taxable value, and then obviously the short timeline for the AUA to get something ready for the state, sounds like probably the best action is to just move on it as quickly as we can. I think we've been discussing it for, internally for a while as well.
I'm comfortable with that too.
I just got one question on the jobs, looking at potentially 35 more jobs. What's the average annual salary on those positions?
The average pay on the jobs?
Yeah, well, like, what are we gaining, or what?
I would say, average pay for what we're talking about here is probably, $35 an hour plus benefits. And the annual budget for just the housing programs that would be housed out of this facility is probably a little bit north of 16 million at this time. And by the time we add the tax forfeited money into it, it's probably gonna be 19, close to $20 million a year.
How many of those properties would be in the city of Hibbing, or how many, like, on average, where do they go? Where the build's taking place at?
The average,
Tax forfeit properties.
the value.
Like,
the value of them?
how many do you foresee being in Hibbing, or, compared to the other surrounding areas?
Boy, I'm having a hard time here today.
No worries. How many tax forfeited properties in the city of Hibbing do you think you'll be
Oh.
bidding on and going renovating?
Gosh, it just depends. In the city of Hibbing, I don't know, if we get up to 15, I'd say we could for sure be doing probably 4 or 5 of them in the city of Hibbing every year.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Hibbing's still the biggest town around, so it's got the most to choose from.
Yeah.
And yes, thank all of you too. I forgot to say that when I was up before.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So I will prepare something for the next meeting. Looks more like a development agreement at this point, potential purchase, working towards that. And then just stay tuned, because I have all of the other redevelopment properties along that belt line. As we move towards a public safety center, the fire hall property will come up for redevelopment, those sorts of things. I'm sorry, Greg, you want to?
So, could I ask for one last little piece of information? And I know that you don't have it currently. If we could get some sort of a report idea of economic impact locally, direct, indirect, induced, I think that would really help us when we're talking about it internally and with our residents.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely do that.
I think there's some business-to-business sales and purchases that happen. Maybe that would be, part of the
Yeah,
induced.
because I've mainly talked about the housing component. We're
Yeah.
not talking about the kitchen and the meal
Right.
delivery and things like that too. But we've got a lot of that information put together. We, as a community action agency, being state and federally funded, we do all sorts of
Right.
reporting. It's not much of a heavy lift for me at all to come up with something like that can really spell out a little better exactly what we intend to have going on in this building.
I think that would help immensely, and I think our residents would love to hear about
Yep.
that, so.
And we can run it the whole way through about what kind of jobs we're talking
Sure.
about internally and the impact that it has on the communities that we serve and where it's all going and everything. And yeah, we can lay it out in a a heck of a lot more information in just a few pages that
Sure.
will spell it out a lot better.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great.
Okay.
Excellent,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much, appreciate that, Scott.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the input and the discussion on that tonight. The next item is Nick's, and I will provide some support, but it's the Recreation Center feasibility.
Thank you, council. I have a handout going around. So I just wanted to bring back around the community center, feasibility study, recreation center. I know we just finished up the feasibility study here in October, November. Wanted to just let that kind of simmer for a little bit and allow you guys to take a look at it. And then kind of just start planning out the next couple years here as we, if this is still a priority of the council in the direction we want to go. These are kind of some of my notes, so I mean, it's nothing's set in stone by any means. This is a lot of my thoughts and stuff on paper, but you know, I know we just finished a major hurdle in the public safety building, getting that thing going, getting that project going. Now we're looking down the pipeline again. What's the next big project we need to start considering? I think it's a community center and a renovation of the memorial building. I think that that needs to be brought back up to the top again. We've talked about it at our strategy meeting last year. That was the step we wanted to take this year, was the feasibility. Now next year, how do we take the next step? And if we look at the results from our last two public surveys that we did with the park master plan and the feasibility study, there's overwhelming support and demand for recreation activities in this town. The public was loud and clear. They're kind of practically begging for more opportunities in the winter months. So in looking at that, this would be a project that would give back to the community, and I don't want to lose that momentum, because we did the surveys, we kind of got them, you know, on the hook a little bit, jazzed up for it. I don't want it to just stop. I want it to, you know, keep it going. A lot of things have to happen, obviously. I guess the biggest question is, what do you guys think? Are we committed to this direction? Do we want to start going down this road again? We've talked internally a lot about it. There's a lot of different components in it, and we kind of boiled it down to priorities, I guess. Priority number one is the memorial building, the existing building. That's priority number one. We have quite a hefty list of you know, deferred maintenance there that we need to start addressing. You know, we have roofing, fire protection, some HVAC we need to continue to upgrade. We have ice plant, things that need to be upgraded in the next 5-10 years. Dehumidification, boards, glass, scoreboard. There's a lot of elements that need to be brought up to date here in the next 5-10 years. So I think that's priority number one. I don't think that building's going anywhere. So I think it is worth reinvesting in that building, and we need to talk about that. Funding for that priority number one, you know, I think that's gonna have to fall on us. I think that's gonna have to fall on, you know, either city funds, reserves, grants, state bonding, if we ask for renovation money, sales tax, energy savings loans to do some of these energy upgrade things. Priority 1B, or excuse me, project 1B, another step, which what I believe would be probably the third priority if we wanted to. I know there's talk about another ice sheet at the Memorial Building with the possible decommission of the Fairgrounds Arena. I think that could go on at the same time. There's no question. You could add another sheet of ice there while we're doing it. We could use each other as a match, kind of, for going after things. I think it could definitely work, and that would keep that Memorial Building an ice-only facility. I believe that you know, that can't be the city's top priority, though. I don't think. As we've talked, You know, adding an additional ice sheet can be a priority of an association and nonprofits to help partner with us and build that extra sheet. But I don't think, if we're listening to the citizens and the survey results, I don't think it can be our top priority for taxpayer dollars. I think that has to go towards existing and then towards a community type center. So I would put an additional sheet of ice there as the third priority in my list here. So yeah, an additional sheet of ice. Funding would probably have to be privately funded, as we would have to prioritize the other two first. And then keeping the memorial building as an ice-only facility, I think probably makes the most sense. We're just so landlocked in that location there. I think we could for sure add another sheet of ice, make that work. But as soon as we start adding other items in there, basketball courts, gyms, other types of community spaces, it really gets bottlenecked and choked down in that part of the neighborhood. And I mean, we already struggle right now for parking and access. And if we're gonna ask residents and things to pay memberships to come there, they're gonna want access in there. And when we have poor access right now, I think it makes it more difficult to have everything in that one location. Not saying that it can't, but I think a community center has to be at a separate location, a separate project from that. So, and again, this is kind of, I'm recapping our internal team, our thoughts and things on this. So, so the community center would be priority number 2, at a separate location, addressing those needs of the residents and desires of the residents. So where do we go from here? The next year, we really need to just start working on funding discussions, partnership development, capital funding, how are we gonna pay for the existing memorial building, those types of things. We need to start having these sit-down meetings with groups, potential donors, potential partners in the project. You know, can we find, you know, we gotta have a conversation with the ice groups and youth hockey and things. What are their plans at the fairgrounds? I know that their timeline, they wanted to be a little more aggressive on a timeline than the city was willing to be at, you know, at this point in stage, but we just haven't had a good sit-down conversation with them to see, you know, are they looking to stay at the fairgrounds? Do they want to own their own building? There'd be some trade-offs, you know, if they decided to fundraise and put on to an existing city building, there'd be some trade-offs, but yet they would be out of the arena management business. So we just have to have those conversations and see, you know, might not be on their timeline, but they're still an important part of this this puzzle. Again, those partnerships we really need to discuss. We've been in conversations a little bit with the YMCA, and you know, are there other partners that can operate a facility for us? Well, we'll use the YMCA in Hermantown as the kind of the model of what it would be awesome to do. The YMCA manages it, operates it. Essentia is the tenant in the building, and the city owns the building. They did the capital construction for it. So, I mean, that's like the ideal model that I would love to explore further and see if there are possibilities to go that route. So that's kind of what we're thinking in the next year, if everybody's okay, just starting some of those conversations, looking at more funding. Our bonding priorities coming up in 2026, 27, beyond. I mean, this would probably have to be our priority when we go down to the Capitol. Renovation, you know, and a community center. Is that the direction we want to go? It's more of a question to you guys. So if we're looking to go down this road in the next years, this isn't going to happen next year, the year after. We're looking 3 to 5 years out right now is what we're talking. You know, and I put a timeline in there of, you know, if we were going down to the Capitol and asking for different things, there's a timeline there. You know, we have to start thinking about this stuff relatively soon in the next couple years if this is the route we want to go. So Also, lastly, I'll make it quick here. We need to do some more site visits, start looking at, other communities. What have they done? How did they get a funding package from the state? How did they fund it? That type of stuff, so. And open to council members to be involved with us on this. We can set up a little subcommittee group, you know, to take these tours, talk to different cities, and, you know, pick their brains a little bit. So if anybody's interested in that type of stuff, we can get that going. And lastly, looking into consultants, again, you know, to help research these funding baskets. Where can we pick from? What grants do we target? Do we have a, you know, fundraising consultant on board to help us out with some of that stuff? So I know it was a lot thrown at you, but we don't have to make any decisions. I want you guys just to start thinking about it and help us out with a little direction. But the main thing is I want to keep the conversation going and, you know, start setting up some of those meetings and just seeing where we can go, and obviously researching more funding opportunities and things, so. Yeah.
Nick?
Jennifer?
Thank you. Thank you for this, the overview of this.
Mhm.
We had our priorities. We had the safety, the public safety building, we had the whole West Mine View, and we had the campground.
Correct.
What happened to City Hall?
City Hall is still a priority. I mean,
So,
we're investing over $3 or $4 million right now into it in the last.
Right, I was just wondering, like, do we have, between the Memorial Building and City Hall, have we prioritized those two?
And we are actually, with Sheena's department, we're working on that, that capital, that SIP plan right now. So I mean, that, once that's finalized, that will really, I guess, have a telling picture of what's coming down the pipeline in the next 10 years. And then we're gonna have to have another probably strategy meeting and what's priorities. Because there isn't enough money to go around for everything, we know that. So we're gonna have to relook at that. But, yeah, we've made a lot of investments in this building. We're gonna have to make more in the City Hall eventually. Where that fits in order is yet to be determined, I think.
Okay. Because I know there's no heat on here right now. It's pretty cold in here.
Nice. Any other feedback, any other questions?
I'll just be really clear, I'm glad you brought this back up. It's still a priority on my list anyways. I'd like to see us, even if we're not allocating dollars to it right now, I'd like to start making that plan and come up with a real substance of what we want to do. We talked about this prior to the public safety building project, and we prioritized that above everything else, but this is still a need, and we're gonna run out of opportunities to suit the needs of the community, and then we're gonna lose stuff. So I'd like to at least address, you know, if we can address the memorial building, the second sheet of ice, to me, I think that's actually secondary to a community center, but it's a priority if we're gonna do the memorial building to add that sheet of ice, so I'm all for moving towards this as a priority personally.
This was a big deal for me, like community center. I know a lot of people want it, and like a YMCA type facility. So, I mean, if I could ever be a part of any committee, I mean, I'd love to explore opportunities to see how that's done. And the land and the houses that went down by the memorial building, is there something in your guys' mind, like what that's going to be? Is that what's going to go there? Will that street go away? Will any kind of second sheet of ice go that way?
Yeah, short answer would be, yeah, I mean, that would be the direction for a second sheet of ice would be over there. Probably vacate that street and put it over there if that's where it was. Right now we're using it as parking, and it helps a lot, so.
Is that one house still there?
Yeah, there's still two houses on that block.
Oh, two.
Yep, one kind of in the middle and then one on the north end. But
I like this checklist, like, I mean, that's like the community center, like, yeah, it's very important, so I'd like to be involved any way I can to help.
Okay.
This is definitely high on my priority list too. I think we need to get going with it, and I think we need to start more conversation with the youth hockey too for that other sheet. They're on borrowed time there, as we all know, with that.
Yep.
arena, so they need to do something soon too. So
Yep.
if they know our plans, if it's just an arena, maybe we can get that going as well.
Yep.
So,
Betsy and I have just talked, last week, and that's probably gonna be one of my first phone calls, just find out where they are, what they're thinking, and, if we still fit into their plans, because we haven't had a good discussion like that, but yeah, I agree, it's gonna be, I know they're on borrowed time, and I know they wanna move aggressive, and, we'll help any way we can on that.
yeah, I get a lot of questions there, and then the other one is a community center, so yeah.
Yeah.
It's high priority for me for all
Yep.
of this.
Who owns that fairgrounds building?
Youth Hockey owns it.
They own the whole thing? Has there been any kind of discussions, with naming rights to like a new, like Rapids is the Enmar Arena or whatever, like something to any kind of new addition or Sheets Ice or partnering with sponsors to help fund?
Yes, if anything happens, I think that's gonna be on the table for sure. I think we have to get, naming rights and selling, everything and anything that can be sold, I think is gonna be part of it. Locker rooms and lobbies and anything like that, and naming the whole building, I think is definitely an option that will be explored. Yeah.
I also like the, partnership with the YMCA or some sort of hospitals, just kind of getting an all-in approach like that. That model of Hermantown, I think, is definitely the way would be most successful to go.
Yep, and I think however those conversations go with some of those groups is, would dictate where it would go. We've got 7, 8 sites, potential sites selected, but, some would be better for some and, some would be better for others. So, as those conversations, progress, I think that'll kind of help narrow down the scope of where it would go, so.
Any other comments? Good.
Thank you for bringing it
Okay.
up today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to number 4, it's Nick again, right? Municipal Golf Course Clubhouse Operator.
Oh, yeah, thank you. So just wanted to bring up the golf course discussion again. In the process of looking for an operator to run the clubhouse. We've been approached, first of all, we went out for the RFP and we didn't have anybody respond to the RFP. So we've just been kind of reaching out and trying to see what we could do, if we could do it internally, and researching ideas, things like that. And Randy Murray is here with us tonight. He has expressed interest in operating the clubhouse. I've had a couple sit-down meetings with him and chatted through some ideas, and he's got a lot of the stapled proposal planning sheet here is his ideas, but we've had a lot of good discussions on possible ways to, drive more members down there, get more rounds and different things like that. But long story short, I believe he is interested in taking the position, and I put together just a quick little synopsis there of what we'd paid our previous manager and what the proposed one for this year would be. And I think it's a fair ask. We've gone back and forth on this a couple times, and I guess I would like to kind of move forward into negotiations with Randy to hopefully get him on board as soon as possible to get moving on this, because we know spring will be here before we know it. A couple things that he's indicated, he does have his own point of sale system, so that was an expense I thought we were gonna have to fork over for this year, $3 to $4 grand to get all set up with that. But he is already set up with that as a business. And, you know, he'd be responsible for his own food, beverage licenses and insurance, just like the previous contractor, and then also responsible for all the overhead. So I just did a quick little breakdown of, you know, potential revenue that he could go after. It is still incentive based. I mean, they do get a percentage of green fees. The more people that come in the door, the more money they make. So it is on them as well. And they also, the more people they bring in, the more sales in the clubhouse goes back to them too. So there's a opportunity for some more revenue that's not here. I just took kind of historically what it's been. So, and then he definitely has some ideas on how to enhance things on his end. You know, if he's coming in and doing that, he has ideas to maybe offer new leagues, offer a couples night. We've talked about more tournaments on the weekends and things like that. So I guess I'll make it short, but just looking for any feedback. I'd like to get moving on an agreement with him if possible, and try and get him in place for this spring. And just crunching the numbers quickly, and I mean, you can look at it here. If we were to take this in-house, you know, and hire our own staff to staff it, we're gonna be paying more than this. You know, and granted, we would get 100% of the sales of the alcohol and the concessions and merchandise and things like that. But then there comes a whole nother liability and risk associated with that too. This way, if we give it as a contractor, they're on the hook for that liability, not the city. So there's a little, I guess, give and take there as well. I think this is a fair deal for us to not have to worry about some of those issues and you know, hire our own staff and not have to hire our own staff and manage it ourselves. So, open to questions, comments?
Yeah. So Nick, I see all the different things here on the back for winter. So what would our capital outlay need to be for that building to be able to be used year round?
Yeah, that's down the road thinking. We would have to talk about that. Any winterization, I should say, to make that usable in the winter, there's quite a bit of upfront cost yet, so we would have to definitely put that on a capital schedule. That wouldn't be something that would be next year by any means, but possible future down the road.
Okay. Thank you.
Curious, just, I've talked to Randy about this a number of times. I know Randy has the intention of having golf carts out there as an option. Is there a solution for storage that we're gonna help with, or is that on Randy to figure out on his own?
We've just talked briefly on it. I haven't gone into in-depth conversation. We've talked about just doing a trial run and not having a shed or anything out there at the moment, you know, just locking them up, try to lock them up at night the best we can first, just to see if it brings in more play.
Yeah.
But then if it's a hit and we can, you know, recoup our money and get some more revenue, I think down the road, yeah, there would have to be some investment in a shed and some type of storage.
Is there a term contract that we're looking at?
Right now, we've just talked 1 year. He wants to, you know, see what he's getting into as well. So, I mean, it's not gonna be a long-term commitment right off the bat. But I understand too, it's a business and he's gotta see we don't have a lot of data for him either. As far as some of the commission sales, or excuse me, some of the clubhouse sales and alcohol sales, we don't have hard numbers on that from years past. So, you know, it's going to be a learning experience for a year and see how it goes, and then we'd have to renegotiate again next year.
So did we keep the membership fees the same for individual and family this year?
Yeah, as of right now,
Right,
we have not
okay,
proposed
okay.
any fee
So
increases this year.
there's 15% of green fees. is that 15% of every membership sold as well?
Correct.
And that was the same agreement we had with the previous contract?
Yep, correct.
So,
Yeah, I think it's just 15% of gross revenue.
Revenue,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I should have labeled that differently.
Is Randy gonna be offering lessons?
Please say no. Please say no, I've golfed with him.
I like the plan. Yeah. We need somebody.
Keep it going,
Yeah.
yes,
And
exactly.
there's a lot of good ideas here, and Mr. Murray's a local, and someone wants to take up the ambition and have ideas to do this, I think we gotta support them. Does someone already start a Facebook page? I got asked to like a Hibbing Municipal Golf Course page,
Yep, yeah.
and I did like it. I was wondering who
Yeah,
did
and that's
that.
part of it, yeah, just getting a little more social media
saw that,
presence
I'm like,
out there, getting a kind of its own dedicated website, you know, online payment and things like that, you know, upgrading it a little bit, so just try to make it a little easier for people coming into town and want to book a tee time or whatever and get some more play, because that's where we're lacking, to be honest, is on the weekend play, and you know, if we can bring a few more people down there on the weekends, it's gonna help everybody out.
Yeah, I think the plan looks really good. And, you know, move forward as quickly as we can. You know, thinking those warm thoughts of golf time later this week, it sounds really good.
All right, we'll work on an agreement with Randy and have that probably next meeting for consideration, so, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so moving on to number 5, budget software proposal.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Within your workshop packet, you should have received a proposal for budget software from Questica. So my budget accountant, as well as myself, have been undergoing some demos for budget software. We've looked at a few different options. We've looked at OpenGov, ClearGov, as well as Questica. After reviewing all of the different demos, this is the one that we like the best. This would be on a cooperative purchasing contract. The proposal would be for the actual implementation services, which would be a one-time fee of $6,600, but then we would have an annual subscription fee of approximately $25,000. So I wanted to bring it before the council before I bring it for a vote and approval at the next meeting, just because, well, one, it's budgeted, but then ongoing we'll have a budget commitment for that subscription fee. Some things that the budget software would do for us is it would make it more efficient for personnel budgeting for my accountant to be able to easier determine what salaries and fringe benefit costs would be. It'll also help us with scenario building, so we can look at different scenarios and save them and see if we do this, it's gonna cause this. It's also interactive, it's web-based, so we'll have an unlimited number of users, and all the department heads can request their budgets through the software, and we can interact back and forth with one another. We did leave out the capital subscription, you'll see that on the page, and that's because we've already implemented Planet as a capital improvement planning software that we've been utilizing. So we decided to leave that out at this time as we continue to use the Planet software. That's just, I guess, high level. Did you want any more information, or do you have any questions on the software, or are you comfortable with moving it forward for approval at the next meeting?
Say move it forward.
Okay.
How many years does that 25 maintain?
It's currently a 3-year for this proposal, and then after that, you can enter into another agreement where you'd have a multi-year agreement for the subscription fee. Otherwise, they said generally their inflator doesn't go over 5% year over year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Was that the last one on our list already?
Already?
On to the round table. Start over here.
Nothing from my office this evening.
Good.
I have something to talk about. I know. So I know that we talked about it at the last workshop about the animal shelter. It was kind of brief. I did talk about that I was going out to the airport to request the lease of the land be changed from, so we had to terminate the land through HEDA, and then, excuse me, then we, tonight, you know, have it now between the city of Hibbing and the Chisholm-Hibbing Airport Authority. So that piece of it has been done. Once we get this signed on our end and on the authorities' end, it can be either an intake or it can be a shelter. And that was just done so that we don't have to go back to them for, to get that changed at a later time if we decide we don't want to continue on with an intake or the pound. I prefer to say intake. But what we didn't talk about last time was your thoughts on how long we want to do this, if we want to continue it indefinitely, if we want to engage Range Regional Animal Rescue, if we want to engage, you know, do another RFP. We just didn't get to that point. At this point, we've fulfilled all of our obligations for the property itself to do our intake. And so I guess at this, now I just kind of want to know where we're at. I know Range Regional Animal Rescue is also concerned because they are planning to reapply for their licensure. There's a few things that would need to be done within the building, and you know, they don't want to put the money into that if the council doesn't want it out there anymore. We did bring Alyssa here tonight to talk about kind of where we are with animals. I know she had given some animals that both went into Range Regional Animal Rescue, and then what the city has brought in in 2024. So I don't know if you want to, you know, hear a little bit from Alyssa, or if you want to start with a discussion.
I'll give you my 2 cents.
Okay.
This whole situation, I think there are too many moving parts, like the airport, the city-owned building, and then a separate 501c3 that occupies this building. Just based through my experience of having to, through my job with I work with animal rescues, and I'm not biased towards any rescue group. They all do great work, and God bless them for doing it. With it being like, I prefer a situation where it would be great if there was ever some kind of path where we could, like, I don't like that building is on, I don't know why it was put there on airport land. It just seems so backwards to me. Like, why wasn't it built on city land? Because then I would just like, I like groups that own their own buildings. Like, then we contract with them. Like, there's your building, that's your rescue. We'll give you 50 grand a year. Because having an intake like adds another step. Like, we take them, hold them, they're there for 5 days, then we still got to find a rescue group to find these animals homes. And a lot of them are overwhelmed in the area, and a lot of them we would have to travel far to bring these animals. So in my mind, it would be an ideal situation if, I don't know if it's possible to work it with the airport to get them to sign over or sell us that land, and then we can sell that building and land to a 501c3. It's theirs, they operate it, they do what they want with it, and we don't have to be so hands-on with them being in our property and kind of overseeing them. Like, you run your group, we'll pay you money for a service, and that's it. That's a path I would like to see eventually get to. Whether it's doable with that building and that property, I don't know. But I think that's just the best situation for a city, is to not have all these moving parts with a lease with the airport, having another entity in the building, having to oversee them, make sure everything goes right. Sometimes things go off the rails, as we have seen over the last few years. So, and that's just not a knock on them either. I mean, it happens with all these groups sometimes. You gotta have a good, stable board that's there forever and keeps things going, and a good shelter manager that wants to stay there and doing the good work that it takes to be a successful rescue organization. So That's what's on my brain, what I think would be a great path forward, but I'm only one person.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I have no argument with that. I mean, I think that's a good way to move. I don't know on that specific property. I don't think that's an option. I don't know that, but also, what do we do? I mean, in that same situation, what do we do if we were right back here? What if there was that contracted entity, and then all of a sudden that entity goes under? We're right back to where we started anyways, right? And then we don't have property to do anything on, because we don't own it. That would be my one concern with that. Because we still have to provide an intake, correct?
We don't have to.
We don't have to do anything ever?
Legally, we aren't obligated to.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So we could choose to do nothing, and then...
The research I did said there's all these things saying your city has the power to do all of these, and then the fine print is like, but it doesn't have to do any of them.
Okay.
Candy, could I ask a question? And I don't necessarily need the rescue group to answer this. Realistically, can you get a license if you don't have a site? Or are they representing that this is their site in their application for a license?
Yeah, they have not applied yet, so.
But realistically, is that?
Correct.
If you don't have a site, or if you can't represent that you have a lease for a site, will
Correct.
they even give you a license?
Correct.
They won't.
So we would need to decide if that site's an option for them.
Correct.
So has the city, you said there's some things that the city needs to do with the building. Has the city started doing those things?
So what the Regional Animal Rescue, they had to work on intake. They didn't have a specific spot. That has to be, they just have to move some things around, which a lot of things they've done. They've wanted to paint. They've wanted like different things to be brought in to take care of that, some of the issues that they did not pass.
So I was wondering, do we have to invest any of our money to help the building? The building is fine just the way it is. Is that, because we own the building, are we going to
Yeah.
have any expenses?
So we put in a new furnace already. That was an issue. We redid the ventilation. The ventilation was the biggest part of ours, but we had ordered the parts. They literally didn't come until, we ordered them in May, and they did not come until the day after they were there in September. It was just a parts issue, you know. I know that we did put up the snow stops on the top. We didn't put the dormer. That would be another thing that would, I mean, it wasn't in the citation, or the actual investigation, or not investigation, but inspection. And, but that was something that we had talked about. They're not using the back building. If we were to either move the building or redo the building so that they could use it, that would be an expense.
Is that the building they put up?
They did put up, but once it's up, it becomes ours. And then they talked about, like, going through the metal to do something for dogs that come in with bite holds, because their workers have been bit from these dogs that are on a 10-day hold. And so if they did something from the outside that they could move them out, kind of push the door down while they're outside, then they're not coming in complete contact with them. So, I mean, that would be something that we would probably have to pay for because it's on our building.
So there's things, I think I'm hearing you say there's things that we need to do to become compliant, to become, in compliance with what they were cited, right?
Yeah.
For the building.
Well,
regardless if they come back in and are the 501c that runs it, or if a new group comes in.
Yeah, that last piece with the building, that wasn't part of their, the inspection. That wasn't anything that they passed.
Okay.
They just want to do that to protect their employees, and so that the dogs don't feel like the stress and the harm.
And I agree with Counselor Whitney, and I think there might even be some that might be even in the works or conversations that are starting about what that might look like if one entity owns the property and provides the services.
Right.
Right? Because it's really hard to fundraise on a building that you don't own to make improvements on for any nonprofit to do.
So what does it look like come the 1st of February or even today? So without a kennel license, is Range Regional no longer there? Any employees? Like,
They
what
are,
does that look like?
they are still there until January 31st. With an intake, we're not, like, the state's not gonna come in and do inspections on us. That, it's left up to the city, like police department, and that. So once, after speaking with Dr. Steve Cavisto, he said they can be in there cleaning and getting it better if that's the choice the city wants to take. So they can be in there. We would have to hire people to take care of the animals. Right now, there's one dog on a bite hold, there is one in foster, there's one cat, and there is one other dog, or two other dogs that we've brought in. At this point, up until the 31st, the animal shelter can still take care of those animals. And so we actually have a meeting tomorrow with our internal team to discuss how we're gonna move forward with that. At the most, I mean, there might be 4 or 5 animals, in there at a time, but you have to have people who, can handle them, because some of them are big dogs, so.
And then do we have the connections we need after, say, that 5 days?
Correct.
We need to move the animals on.
So after 5 days, they become the property of the city. If the city chose to do adoptions, we can, or we can get them out to the shelters who have already said that they would help us, us.
And what happens if the shelter that's helping us no longer has space?
Well, we have multiple shelters that are willing to help. Yep.
Did anybody reach out to Grand Rapids and Carl to see how he operates their intake and how they staff it?
Yes, it's staffed by Carl himself and then the police officers in Grand Rapids. So they take turns going over and, feeding them and letting them out. So, like I said, that's a discussion that we're having tomorrow with our chief, where we're at with that.
Is it possible, just on the side, just to kind of to clean it up, where you could drop a contract with whatever 501c3 that wanted to take this over? That as long as you, maintain your license, you have this building, we could, sign that building over with some kind of a stipulation, It's kind of like owning, but as long as you run the business, you own it, but when you're done, then it would come back.
And that would be up to the council. Yeah.
Because then you're just bringing it down to 2 entities and we would pretty much be out of it as far as, that's, as far as an owner, they would own the building. Then that would help them with their fundraising. I don't know, just a thought. Yeah, right, that's what it would be, is, the deed would be as long as, the contract written up, as long as you maintain.
Well, you don't own the land, so it's not quite a contract for deed, so, which I was more worried about a super long-term contract for deed. You'd have to have a public hearing just to approve that, but some sort of, let the, whatever 501c3 is, deal with the airport, and the cities out of it only to contribute money or support.
Right.
I don't know if that's even feasible, but then you're down to two entities, and we're kind of washed away. you know, still be part of it, but not as directly as we have been.
Yeah, I do like the idea of the organization having the property. That really would take a lot of this off of, a lot of stress off of you.
And I assume with the airport, they will not be giving that land or selling that land. That's under their purview, and they need that additional property. for
We
airspace.
haven't had that discussion with them yet. We were fulfilling our obligation with the 20-year lease. So, you know, that's the last thing that we would want to do, is not, you know, finish out our obligation.
So if we were to entertain another lease, let's just hypothetically say we would be willing to, you know, give that property so they can at least apply, try to get their license back, you know, we would sign like a letter of intent or something like that, right? What does the term of that look like? And when do we, you know what I mean? Like, are we locking ourselves into something super long-term? Can we essentially maybe find out an arrangement where they could purchase property even elsewhere and do something different just to kind of accomplish that goal?
Well, and I think at this point, we would want to do an annual license, and not because, it's just in the past, this hasn't been happening since, I don't know, was it July or August of '24? But we want to make sure that at this point, if it's still our building, that we get the financials, that we, you know, that they're doing their part of the intake and all of that. They need to maintain a license. And if they can't maintain that license, then it's, I mean, we're gonna be in the same spot that we are right now. And so I would say an annual license, you know, give them 1 year to kind of get back on their feet and get their intake, you know, and their protocols and policies. And again, I mean, Alyssa has written them for us for the intake, which to me, you could then move them right to the 501c3. You would have to, you know, fulfill these obligations with your policies and procedures in order to stay in our building.
And be in good standing with the IRS.
Yep, and they are.
Right, they are,
Yep.
right.
Yep, they are.
So are we gonna do that, or are we gonna go for RFPs and see what's out there, and then are we just gonna, what's the best way to go from here? is what
Well,
I'm asking.
we paid for an RFP to be put in the newspaper last year, and RRAR was the only one who applied. Yeah.
I say for now, just leave it as an intake.
Pardon me?
I say for the short term,
Correct.
keep it as an intake.
Yeah, and we definitely have to do that so that I think everybody's under the same feeling, like our animals deserve
Right.
better
I think the question is,
than to be left out.
do we give Range Regional the go-ahead that we would be letting them use ours so they can apply for a license? Or do we say no? Is that the question?
Yeah, I mean, in order for them in 2 weeks to apply, you know, it's a, I think 45 to 60-day turnaround.
Personally, I'm in favor of doing that.
Yep, me too.
Be prepared to keep it as an intake
Right.
and do what we have to, and, you know, as a backup plan. Don't ever let it go empty and stagnant, but also I'd be in favor of letting them try to revive the operation. Let's do it the right way, make sure, because we have a role in this too, right? As a city, we didn't do our end either, so let's just do our end, and they'll keep their end, and maybe we can sing Kumbaya and move on in the future, so. I'm in favor of that, personally.
Candy, between, when February 1st comes, they won't have a license yet.
Correct.
Who's going to man that facility between the time of February 1st to whenever they might get a license?
Right. So besides our meeting tomorrow with our internal team, Alyssa has really stepped up to, like I said, created the policies and procedures. She'll be out there and also doing her own job. We have 3 CSOs that
Okay.
will be helping. And
Thank
then, yeah, again, we need to have this conversation together, but none of our schedules have meshed lately, so.
I would just like to say thank you to Candy for leading this and working on this so diligently. And also the chief and having his, everyone doing what they need to do. And then Sheena, you'll probably always watch the financial part of it. So, I mean, it takes a village for this. So thank you, everyone, and thank you, Candy.
It is a larger group
It is.
than, really,
Right.
it is.
It is a large group.
So we have a lot of people who are, instrumental in this.
Right.
And so.
And all the stakeholders as well, so thank you.
Correct.
Does anybody have any real disagreement with that, with the property being used for that? Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No.
James?
I do have one more thing. I did say no, but I'm gonna take that back. Let's talk about boards and commissions, because this is a fun discussion. I don't know if you've noticed on our government Facebook page, and then we have them on our website, but they've all been kind of circulating through. I've gotten a couple applications. Our hope is to have some interviews. We're doing them kind of a little bit at a time, but we do have some that we can fill. And the boards and commissions would be like full by the end of, we're hoping February, but some of them it looks like March, just depending on how many people, we would be able to fill in those positions. So I just wanted to keep you updated on those. And when it comes to the interviews, do you want us to continue doing them internally? And then, or does someone want to be on those with us? What we're looking at doing, so let's just take planning and zoning. There would be 2 or 3 of us from internal, and then we would include Pat just to be on that because he's the one who oversees that board. So and you can send me an email, it's fine. I just want to know what your direction is with that. Do you want to have a counselor on there? It's completely up to you, but we're getting to that point where we're going to be doing some interviews again.
Yeah, I don't know if as far as the interview process, we need a counselor unless somebody really feels that they want to be part of it.
Sure.
I think we have enough faith and trust in our leaders here that
Okay,
they'll do what needs to be done.
perfect. Reach out to me if you want to be, and then we can just include you.
Can I just say, in those processes, I don't know if you guys ever do, and I'm okay if you don't, but some of those folks maybe don't know that they can reach out to us in the process.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just want to say, since now we're being televised, right, that
Yep.
people that are applying for boards and commissions, our numbers are out there. You can call us to, talk to us, tell us your ideas, show that you actually want to be there. That's very, very helpful. So I appreciate those calls.
Perfect. Yep. And I can also send that list
Yeah,
to everyone with your numbers on them and your new number.
okay,
Yeah.
cool. I did have one since can't.
I'm
are you
done.
now?
I'm done.
Are you sure?
No.
Okay.
One more.
Okay, so I had one phone call real quick. I had a phone call, it was today actually, and I almost forgot that I told him I'd bring it up. It was about taxi cab service. I'm glad Mr. Murray is here in the audience. I was told that taxi cabs are having a hard time finding drivers because they can't pass background checks and whatever else, or they're not able to get licensed. It was almost posed as if the city wasn't approving licenses, so I'm just curious, do we have anybody asking to drive cabs? And also, do we have any requirements that will stop Uber and Lyft from operating in Hibbing? Any requirements that they have to go through, or is it the same process as anybody else?
Yes, and Mr. Murray is, a proven fact that he came in with Uber and Lyft, and you just have to go through our same process. And I have a couple that they're trying to start their taxi cab business. We're in the middle of some ordinance changes, but it's not to exclude anybody, it's just to clean them up. That was one of our, when we did our leadership training that night, that was one of the big things, that we've got some really old ordinances, and that's what the council, wants updated, so we're doing them a little at a time. So we do have, just at this point, we have one taxi cab service. Their license is coming due, and she has been sending me all of her stuff for that. There's another couple that like I said, they've given me all their stuff. It just hasn't gone to council yet, so.
Okay, so we don't have any really stringent regulations that are stopping taxis from opening and Hibbing.
No, not at all.
Okay, good.
Nope.
All right, we're good. Thank you.
Councilor Bayless,
Yeah.
just to comment on that, I think the football, I'll say, of the issue has been, and councilors can speak up, do councilors want taxi cab services out of residential properties? That I think that's
Right.
the big one. If that's fine, then fine. If no, then that's where the zoning part of this equation comes in. So I'm not asking for a vote tonight, but I think that's the big football, and that's the issue, I think.
So does that include Uber and Lyft then? Do we have to make a determination on that, or is that a different thing?
So we don't have a separate, the way I have read what Uber and Lyft do, that to me falls under a taxi cab definition, so it'd be the same concept. So if we want to write a new ordinance for Uber or Lyft, we'd have to do that. Otherwise, it falls under the taxi cab. So that becomes the question, does the council want, or is it okay for someone to run a taxi cab service out of a residential area? If it is, then there's no reason for it to change. If there isn't, I mean, there's still rules about how many cars you can park and where.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's the big football maybe for the council.
So could we do a write-up with that? I'm sure we could, but would it make sense for us to write up something along the lines of almost excluding Uber and Lyft from the definition of taxi company? Because if you're using your personal vehicle, you can just park it in your garage and take it out on Friday night and drive for Lyft. And I don't think you should have to go through all of the rigmarole of are you a taxi company and can you have that in your home? Is there a way for us to get around that?
So I think to make sure they're clearly distinguished, I think you'd write an ordinance for an Uber and an ordinance for Lyft, or at least categorize those differently.
Yeah.
So I think you'd need an ordinance so that it was clearly defined, you're not a taxi service, you're this service. So.
Can we find out what other communities do and
Yeah, I
just
think
maybe
we
get
had some
something on that?
ordinances before.
We did, yeah.
Yeah, so I can look back at those. Yep.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, all done.
Thank you.
John?
I'm good.
Okay. Jennifer?
Just a couple things. I'm just wondering, when we have dollar amounts that are on our, when we have items on our agenda and there are dollar amounts and they're not listed, if we could start listing those to be, more transparent. I think there was a couple things on the agenda tonight that did not have a dollar amount, and it was just, if we can maybe work toward that, being a little bit more transparent. The other thing is, I don't know who all received an email regarding Parkinson's group, and I don't know how you want to handle this, Candy, in the future, so that we don't break the open meeting law and all show up at the same time, or a presentation or something like that. I can go ahead and send you the email, and if you don't mind sending it out. I don't know who all was invited to do it or something like that.
I think it came to everybody.
Did it come to everybody? So should we coordinate through you then, or? Okay, very good, thank you, that's it.
I'm good.
I'm good.
Good.
Just one thing, this evening I handed out this conduit bonds from the League of Minnesota Cities. It's just from their debt and borrowing handbook. I know at a previous workshop I had handed out a draft policy that I started working on after our bond council had reached out and said there was a potential applicant who was interested in getting some conduit financing through the city. So I just wanted to give this to you, just so I know that it's not something that we do frequently, and it's been a long period of time since we've done it. So just, this is the background on what it is. And then also just get a feel for if the council is comfortable with staff moving forward with a policy and an application for financial assistance so that we have a good method, the policy would obviously guide us, and then the application would have something that we could have people apply for so that we can vet it out with our finance committee, so then we can bring it forward to the council. We're working through that, but they want to try to move this forward because it sounds like this project wants to apply. So I guess I'm just wondering if the city council wants more background on conduit debt, if they would like a formal presentation similar to how we had on TIF, or if you're comfortable with staff moving forward with this. And I can answer some questions for what I know as well right now on conduit debt if anyone has any questions.
I think I can trust you to move forward.
Yeah.
It's essentially they're using us as a conduit so that they can get our tax exempt status. And I did reach, when I was talking to bond counsel today, he said, you know, the city doesn't have any obligation to pay back the debt, and if they default, we aren't responsible for it. It won't impact our rating, so I asked a lot of those kinds of questions, like, would there be any impact to us? So, and I'm working out still going to different neighboring communities and other cities of our size in Minnesota just to kind of see what kind of fee structures they have as far as what they charge for the application fee, as well as the administrative fee, just so that we can have that embedded in the policy.
So these don't affect our capacity either?
No, it wouldn't count towards any of our limits.
Nothing, okay.
Mhm.
Nice. Sounds good.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Andy?
Pass.
That must be it. I had nothing.
Are we excused?
All right. That closes the meeting.
Awesome.